Hey, you believers, non believers, unaffiliated believers, sort of believers, and even you think I'm a believers, welcome. My non university unstudents, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor. I am encouraged to know there are folks willing to pause and think for a bit, to go a little deeper. So much of society today is a vicious, emotional tornado. There's little willingness to consider history or logic or reason. In short, there's so little willingness to broach wisdom. So, truly, thank you for joining me today. And yes, you can tell I've got a nasty cold going on, but we'll work through it here. Look, I'm no Buddhist. I'm not a quietist, but I am hugely in favor of wisdom. Wisdom requires listening, requires submitting oneself to the teachings and lessons of others, particularly of wise people. Wisdom across human history required listening to old people, people who'd made many errors, mistakes, and they'd learn from all those, and then we would ourselves learn not to repeat their errors and mistakes. But gaining wisdom, it's really not a simple, practical science. Wisdom is no rote technique. Wisdom is a depth, a resource, a scrutiny, an awareness. But one just cannot be aware unless, well, one is aware. Aware of lies, aware of deception, aware of narrative rabbit trails, aware that our emotions are intentionally being preyed upon, strategically twisted and manipulated to lead us into heart traps, which means power grabs. I hate being lured into phony power grabs. Particularly, I hate being played. I hated being played as an employee. I don't like being played as an American citizen, and I hate being played as a Christ follower. I prefer to turn my brain on. Oh, wisdom, you beautiful person, you. Abba, Father, may this show be a sweet-smelling aroma to you today. Here we are on the backside of a historic presidential election, and my first reflections are about wisdom. Why? Because there are qualities and character traits that abide long after an election is over. So today, I pray that the Ancient of Days, the Alpha and Omega, bathes you in his wisdom. You're certainly going to need it. All right, here we are, 34 hours out as I record, and I want to give you some election reflections. But first, I have to start off by saying I was wrong. I said there was a possibility of a big Trump win. That didn't happen. I said Oregon and New York might be in play. They weren't. I was wrong. I like to own my errors. I was wrong in 2007 when I said that Obama could not defeat Hillary Clinton in the primary. And I'm one who thinks it's good to own your erroneous predictions. Secondly, we have to agree together that the polls were off. Mucho grando off. Depending upon the poll, the leading well-known polls, they were off anywhere from 4 to 18 points. At bare minimum, that exceeds the margin of error. What's the point of a poll if the measure is off 4 to 18 points? 18 points with Susan Collins in Maine. She was going to lose. She ended up winning, right? Why poll at all if they're so in error? Well, there are at least two possible answers. First, the polls are unable to account for the Trump voter. Whether those voters were hiding or lying, the polls were dead wrong about the prevalence of Trump voters. But if as a pollster you can't get the numbers right, then there's really no point in conducting a poll. Well, unless the precise point of the poll was not to get an accurate predictive model and more constructed to produce a desired outcome. So Secondly, in all of this, push polls, as they are known, push polls are polls conducted to drive to push an outcome. The more voting blocks of people feel like their vote is not going to matter, the less likely they are to turn out and vote. Now you know this. This is not a new dynamic, but it seems like we simply must take that as a serious possibility, given that for the last 2 presidential elections, the polls have been embarrassingly erroneous. Realist me? I will not take a political poll serious for the rest of my adult life. And that's not a good outcome. We need to be able to trust our institutions. We need to think people are working with integrity, with attention to detail, with a commitment to excellence, and that's not the case. The polls were a total, unspeakable mushroom cluster bomb. And that sets the nation up for too many ugly outcomes on the other side. Fractiousness and divisiveness are only 2 of those ugly outcomes. Here's more for you. The counters in North Carolina, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, they're inept. Are you kidding me? Am I living in a banana republic? We can't devise a system that can tally votes in one day? Let me think. Was this the first general election ever held in the United States? No. Was it the third? No. We've been doing general elections every 4 years for 20? No, for 240 years. The system is broken. If we can't trust the voting system to get a same-day accurate to the 3rd decimal point result, we need to start over. The state officials in all of those 4 states that do not yet know who won their state need to resign or be fired. ASAP. They need to dismiss them like they did after Florida embarrassed itself in 2000, or after Iowa embarrassed all their own Hawkeye fans in 2018. This is simple math, boys and girls. Maybe hire the Count from Sesame Street. How can I come in and help you? He knows how to do simple math. If I were in North Carolina or Nevada or Georgia or Pennsylvania, I'd be so embarrassed. Here in Idaho, where we have, get this, we have the 48th ranked education system in the nation. Guess what? We were able to count our votes. We can count. Goodness gracious. And here's some more. If the mailed envelope isn't postmarked 4 days prior to the election, it should be thrown into the incinerator. Oregon has been doing mail vote elections for years. They make it very clear that the ballot absolutely has to be received prior to the date of election, or it is appropriately tossed out. Integrity. The more exceptions to the rule of when ballots are due, and the more exceptions there are to how people can vote, only invites fraud, manipulation, and mismanagement. I find it unthinkable that states are unable to have laws and systems that ensure their respective vote is counted to the 3rd decimal point of accuracy by the end of the day of election. Again, it's not like we should be surprised that the presidential election wasn't scheduled and coming every 4 years. But all that begs the question. Why weren't clear policies and procedures put in place to begin with? I'll let you decide, but I find it unconscionable, and my hunch is that it's evil. A 4th reflection. This is going to involve a breakdown in trust. We've had 4 years of lying, cover-up, and doublespeak from the FBI and the CIA about the Russia hoax. When our top governmental agencies lie to the American people, it erodes trust. A breakdown in trust ruins relationship between the people and the institutions. But just as bad, a breakdown in trust, it's an infection. And it ruins relationships between family and friends. And that's just grievous. When I was a little boy, we had Nixon and Watergate, and that was followed by Reagan and Iran-Contra. And then we had Bill Clinton in Oval Office Gate, where he was allowing whatever was going on with Monica, right? And then we had Iran Gate, where billions of dollars in cash were airlifted overnight to the Ayatollah in Iran with President Obama. And those scandals, abuses of power, caused people to lose trust, to become cynical about the institutions. And that's a train wreck for the fabric of society. Trust is essential for living in a healthy society. This election, the debacle that it has become, the ineptitude, the manipulation, like acid, it will erode trust in our institutions. Not good. Not good at all, I tell you, Sonny. Welcome. This is my third episode in my series, Is God Nice? It's a fitting question because the number one virtue of polite Western postmodern society is nice. Not courage, not generosity, not even fidelity, but nice. So let's explore this further. Is God nice? When I was a young stud in high school, I starred in a horror movie called A Car Wreck. If you're interested, I tell the full story in episode number 83, the event that redirected my life. Because of that horror story, my life's been sculpted for decades by the ongoing effects of that Northern Californian I-5 freeway accident. Pain, abiding arthritis in my left foot, back pain and stiffness, and honestly, I'm going to give you a full confession. I live with an awareness of death. Frankly, if anything, I live wondering whether death is around the corner, and so I take deep solace in knowing my soul belongs to the life giver himself. But that accident has always been a blessing in so many ways to me. I live in daily gratitude. I've been given an extra 43 years of life. I got to go to college, seminary. I got to drink deeply from the wells of historic Christian faith. I was able to earn a PhD, teach for 25 years, get married to a beautiful, godly woman, have 3 kids, 2 grandkids. I've published books. I've won awards. I've traveled to Europe some 15 times. Honestly, you guys, I have lived a dream life. And I don't know that I would have looked at it that way apart from that brutal automobile accident. It not only redirected the path of purpose for my life, it shaped me so that I am today a different man. I understand deep pain. I'm aware of what it means to suffer deeply. I know what it means to endure long seasons of pain and pain management and recovery and flourish. And still more, the aftermath, the ongoing effects of that accident have caused me to be aware of important realities, like the difference between faddish pseudo-philosophies and abiding truth. The differences between pop psychology ideas that imprison people and eternal realities that set them free. Me, I'd be happy to talk for hours with you about those philosophies and ideas and that truth in a long, discursive lecture style. Class, are you taking copious notes? But today I think it'd be more immediate just to tell you some stories. When I was in seminary, finishing my MA in Biblical Studies and Theology, my mentor's name was Richard Muller. With his encouragement, wait, you think I could do a PhD? But I'm just a goofy jock from Oregon. With his encouragement, I applied to the PhD program. And along with the salutary letters of recommendation, you had to take the dreaded graduate records exam, the GRE. So I bought one of those thick practice books, read through it, took multiple practice exams, memorized vocabulary like never before in my life, studied, and then what did I do? Study. Then a few weeks later, I went and took the exam. My scores were high enough to pass muster on the seminary's requirement standards, with the exception of my math score. It was too low. Darn math! It's never my strong suit. So I had to reschedule and retake that exam, and the process of all that prolonged the time span by another 2 or 3 months. And the second time I took the GRE, I had raised my math scores sufficiently for the PhD program standards. Mostly, as I think about it, I bet I guessed correctly on some of those multiple choice questions on the actual exam. But so, still a few weeks after all that, I went and met with Dr. Moeller in person, and he informed me that the committee, at his insistence, was giving me entry into the PhD program. They were doing that even though my math score on the GRE was too low. Dr. Moeller, by force of person, verbally wrangled the committee into accepting me. In fact, he did not even know that I had gone and taken the exam a second time and had increased my math score sufficiently. No, Dr. Moeller had done a life-changing favor for me. 2 years later, in the middle of my PhD program, Dr. Moeller resigned and moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan to chair a PhD program back there. And I was sad to know he was going, but he invited me to follow him, and he said he'd get me ongoing educational scholarships so I could finish my degree with him there in Michigan. But my wife had a really good job, and we lived near her family. God bless them, because they watched our young children frequently. So I decided not to move to Michigan. And that left me up in the air in the middle of my PhD program. Who's going to be my new mentor now? Who's going to help me guide my dissertation now? Well, on what was then a lark, a chance decision, I enrolled in a class on ecumenism. Ecumenism class is about church unity and building intra-church relationships. And I took that class with Dr. Mel Robeck. I loved that class. I learned a ton. I so enjoyed it that I asked Dr. Robeck if he would be my new mentor, and graciously he agreed. And I ended up writing a dissertation, a comparative study of Eastern Orthodoxy and classical Pentecostalism. It was a dissertation that, honestly, Dr. Moeller, God bless him, he would not likely have approved for me to write. Dr. Moeller was a 16th century Reformation specialist, and he would have wanted me to write something on the Reformation or Reformation theology. But Dr. Robeck allowed me to write an out-of-the-box comparative ecumenical study, and that study and his mentorship both changed the direction of my life. I'm going to tell you a third story, but first, I would love to have you on the UU team. It's as simple as signing up for my e-newsletter at uncensoredunprofessor.com or subscribing to my podcast videos on YouTube. Thanks for your consideration. Almost 3 years ago, the end of January 2018, I had major back surgery. A local spudlander gave me the names of 3 spinal surgeons, and I chose the one I did because he had been a Navy SEAL. I figured anyone with that kind of discipline, perseverance, that kind of steel in his veins was exactly the kind of person I wanted performing hyper-delicate surgery on my precious back. So one icy cold morning here in Boise, Dr. Manning and his surgical assistant Jeff removed 4 discs from my lower spine, took tiny pizza slice-shaped plastic wedges and pounded those back in where my God-given discs had been. Then they took a bunch of titanium screws and created a cage all around those 5 vertebrae. I had, as I mentioned above, I had endured back pain on and off for 38 years. But that Boise back surgery has removed 90%, I don't know, maybe 95% of my daily, my my post mow the lawn or my post walk the dog back pain. It's true I'm a little less flexible. I mean, good grief, I have a cage of titanium in my back. But the pain is almost entirely gone. Now, do you know what those 3 stories all have in common? 3 significant events, each of which changed the direction and quality of my life. All 3 of those involved doing. All 3 of those events, life-changing events, were far more about action and almost entirely not about feelings. You see, we live in an era that says, no, it shouts, forcefully shouts. No, it ferociously shouts that feelings are more important than anything. No one should ever hurt your feelings. No one should ever question your feelings. No one should ever think anything to hurt your feelings. Feelings are supreme, baby, supreme. But the events that changed my life were not very much about feelings and were a whole bunch about actions, doing. Back to story number 1. Dr. Moeller stepped in and was an advocate for me even though my math score wasn't high enough. He intervened on my behalf by persuading other faculty. He didn't change my life by telling me I was charming or that he felt I should be included in the PhD program or even that my own emotions were in fact supremely important to him. No, he did something. Lobbied for me, argued for me, and then thanks to him, I was enrolled in a PhD program. Get this, you guys. Dr. Moeller never told me he liked me, though I suspect that was true. Dr. Moeller never told me he liked my skin color, because I don't think that even mattered. Dr. Moeller never even told me that he had a warm fuzzy when he thought about me. Now, look it. I'm not saying emotions weren't part of his decision to lobby for me, but I'm saying that what changed my life was his actions toward me, not the feelings that he and I shared together. Actions, not feelings, are the fruit of Christian love, Christian character, Christian life. Let me go back to my second story. Dr. Mel Robeck showed me incredible grace by accepting me as his PhD student, even though I had only taken 2 prior classes from him. Now, he may have enjoyed me. He may have liked me emotionally, but what really changed my life was his agreeing to take me on for PhD study. The truth is, he did. Yep. Upon a couple occasions, he emotionally encouraged me in his office. But what really affected my life were his actions toward me, his guiding my research, reading my dissertation chapters, his working diligently to find me a world-class external reader from Oxford. Dr. Robeck passed down book deals to me from publishers. He gave me invitations to speak in Europe. His actions, far more than his feelings, changed the very biographical path of my life. And yeah, let me go back to my third story. Dr. Manning was about as emotionally detached as you could imagine. I mean, he wasn't rude, but he did not dote on me in his office. In the pre-surgery meeting or in the post-surgery appointments, he didn't spend time asking me questions about my family, my world-class podcast, or my hobbies. He wasn't even that attentive when, after surgery, I came in for his help with intense iliotibial IT band nerve pain in my left leg. No. From beginning to end, he was very businesslike. Matter of fact, he was, let's get to the heart of the matter. Your back and the very specific, skilled, technical surgery that I'm going to perform on your back. I would have liked it if Dr. Manning was more emotionally connected to me as a patient. But what I really cared about is that he was a world-class surgeon. His training, his discipline, expertise, focus, his willingness to have learned something supremely difficult and then bring all of that to bear on a 5-hour surgery on my tired old back is what changed my life. His actions, not his emotions. Oh, thank you, God, for Dr. Manning. And thank you, Dr. Manning, for you. So all of that as a setup. Is God nice? Not if we're talking about feelings. Because today, nice is almost entirely about feelings, non-committal feelings. Did you convey nice facial emotion when you attended the mandatory soul-killing office meeting? Oh man, I was publicly scolded at some sincere length by an insecure administrator because of my resting face. Apparently I have a resting bitch face. Now, excuse my language, but that's just the best way to capture that image, right? Apparently at that dog and pony administrative show, I was not sitting there with a gleeful, obsequious, poo-eating, nice grin. And that really upset a couple of folks. Oh my gosh. Did you smile when you waved for that other driver to cut in front of you on the freeway?
You didn't, you hater.
Did you? Now ask yourself, did you feel love when you forgave someone who injured you?
Oh, you didn't? Then you must not have meant it.
Did you? Oh my me. Did you paste a smiley face emoji when you wished your Facebook friend a happy B-Day? Oh, you didn't? You must not really like them, right? Niceness. Nice today is all a matter of feeling. Syrupy, fleeting feelings, shallow feelings. Niceness is, well, it's like what Dr. Ulrich Lehner wrote in his book, God is Not Nice, Rejecting Pop Culture Theology and Rediscovering the God Worth Living For. Niceness is an artificial feeling of happiness. Niceness has become, he wrote, a sentimentalist virtue. We suppose God is a vending machine. I hitched a ride with the vending machine repairman. Dee-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. We suppose God is a vending machine. We pop into emotional quarters, say a quick prayer, make a Sunday church visit, and then God will dispense with a 16-ounce bottle of feel good. But is God really nice? Lord, no. Praise God. He who is Omnia Nostra is not nice. The God who is our everything is not nice. Niceness today is like the person who says, "Oh, I just love humanity." But when you ask them, "Oh, good, you love humanity? So then you must believe that aborting an 8-month gestated fetus is immoral, right?" What do you get? Stone cold silence. Sweet mercy. With my wife, I just watched a 15-minute video of Louder with Crowder where Steven Crowder had a calm, extended conversation with a 20-year-old woman. He began to ask her questions about if or when an abortion was ever immoral, and she said, I just follow the science. So when Crowder told her that science shows that at the instant of conception, the zygote is an entirely different genetic structure versus the mother, so that the zygote is no mere appendage of the mother's own body, and that new genetic structure was itself human, the 20-year-old woman backed off. She said, well, I don't know. It's such a contextual situation. And you guys, me, the you, I sat watching and I thought, well, clearly science is not important for her. So then Crowder asked her, look it, what's the bottom line issue for you then? And the woman said, suffering. Crowder said, oh, that's a good one. Who wants anyone to suffer? And the young woman said, I don't know anybody who wants others to suffer. I sure don't. And Crowder responded, excellent, we're on the same page there. So if I told you that the fetus is capable of feeling pain at 14 weeks, some scientists argue 8 weeks, would you be willing to say abortion should be rare after 14 weeks? And you guys, again, the very nice, smiling, nice 20-year-old woman said, wow, I don't know. It's all so contextual. I just cannot tell a woman when or if she can have abortion. Crowder said, but you just told me you draw the line at suffering. Do you want that human fetus to suffer? And the congenial, pleasant, nice woman said, it's just not my call. And my listener, you can imagine it only devolved from there. It just didn't matter what kind of logic or science or truth Crowder offered up. She repeatedly backed off. Her brain, oh my gosh, her brain, if we could have seen it, would have looked like a severely twisted pretzel, confused, illogical, trapped inside a self-made prison of emotional inconsistencies, societally constructed fallacies. And all that? Her face during the conversation was pleasant. She had a nice conversation with Crowder for 15 minutes. My point? Nice is a sentimentalist virtue. It feels nicely toward others. It just doesn't do anything to actually help others. Nice would be hard-pressed to defend a helpless baby. Holy God in heaven. Stupid, simple ways to help me promote the show. Tell a friend about a show where Christians go to think. Repost a podcast link to your Twitter feed. Share one of my posts on Facebook. And on that latter point, my heartfelt gratitude to the following for helping me through Facebook shares to get the UU word out there. Victor S., Megan L., Thomas M., Darren G., Cody A., James T., Bobby J. V. Thanks most sincerely, yous guys. Me, I'm afraid. I'm afraid as I espy American culture. I'm afraid as I observe American church culture that what we want most of all is a nice emotion. We don't really want the living God, the holy consuming fire who is God in the biblical revelation. No, what we want is for God to give us a sweet emotional day. We'd really like it if God could be a significant element to our wellness program. Wah, wah, wah. C.S. Lewis said we don't really want a father in heaven so much as we want a benevolent and tender grandfather in heaven. We want him to mostly leave us alone. Well, that is, until we don't feel good. Then we want him to intervene in a way where our feelings are better. So yeah, as Dr. Lehner mused, quote, such a God, a grandfather, could exist. He would leave us be because he would not care much for us, end quote. A God like that, a parent like that, Dr. Lehner said, a parent who lets his children do what they want and shelters them from every unhappy feeling, just raises monsters. I would, Dr. Lehner continued, I would rather have my children experience suffering if that is for their best than constant kindness that suffocates their souls. Gersh. I could do an entire series on the necessity of the struggle. Oh, we could talk about the horror of parents who enable their kids to remain children into their adult lives. I'm afraid that today's society is just a mirror of the infantilization of tens of millions of adults. Looting in the name of a dead person? Seriously? It's infantilization writ large. So with all of that at hand, with all of that having been laid out for you today, what should you do? What do you do with this information? Well, pray. I'm telling you guys, the heart of Christ. Prayer is always an appropriate response in life. Pray for God's strength, God's endurance and intervention. Pray for resolve. Pray for wisdom. Oh, wisdom, you silent beauty. And then determine daily, one baby step at a time, to choose Christ, to choose depth, to choose truth, to choose not to quit. Life really is a matter of decisions. Not just that one time you prayed to ask Jesus into your heart, but daily decisions, daily habits, daily becoming more like the cunning thief in the night, Yeshua, Nazareth. Now please, hear me carefully. I'm not telling you to suffer in silence. I'm not telling you that your pain or alienation is just a blip on the screen. I don't like dismissing reality like that. I don't like when people dismiss one another like that. The church is not good at being there for those enduring abiding suffering. But on the other hand, the truth is, you can do it. You can grow. You can get through this season, whatever it is. And the Lord will likely use it for your growth because, oh, gulp, because the honest to God truth is, our Father in heaven cares more about our character than our wellness program. He cares more about the shape of our soul than the shape of our bank account. He cares more about what you do than what you feel. Our shallow society purposefully means to manipulate your emotions, to play you. Me, the you, I have zero intention of manipulating your emotions. You, determine in your core, determine in the depths of your soul that you will not be emotionally manipulated, not even by nice. And when you do that, when you make that determination, goodness, you will be free. Wow. Now that I'm near the end of the show, what God cares about is that you become like Him way more than that you are nice. Whew. He cares way more that you become like Him than that you are nice. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your patience in me getting this out a couple days late. Not what I planned on, but it's just the contingencies of life sometime. Thank you so much. God bless you. Please go and turn your beautiful God-given brains on, everybody.